Salutations. Okay, technical difficulties again. Hopefully everybody can see me. The chat is now activated. I had problems getting on here, so hopefully everybody can see me and I'm like registering. So Jessica, I see your comment. Thank you for being here. And can you tell me if you can hear me and see me? You know I go through that freaking out. Greetings, Angeli. Okay, there's Matthew. Hello, Matthew. Okay, hopefully can everybody hear me though and see me? Okay, great. Hello, Ernest. Oh, okay. Thanks everybody for being here. I apologize for being late. I couldn't get the chat going and I couldn't get YouTube reconnected and all this other weird stuff that was going on. So I think I got it fixed though. Slowly, this is like for me, these honestly, these lives are like trial by fire. It's bizarre, but yet it is what it is, you know. So I thank everybody for being here. This time I've got a couple of sections I'm going to go over as far as this material, and we're going to see if we'll knock it out, maybe, you know, do some discussing about it. And it's interesting because I've been around for a while now, all right, and I was unaware of how many people were unfamiliar with the fact that I had an NDE and what kind of happened to me. It's just kind of part of my story. I've done a bunch of videos over it, and I've also spoken about it a lot at some of these conferences. It's how I kind of start things off as an introduction, but I've been made aware of that a lot of people don't know. So I'll just talk and kind of go over to that a little bit, since it's the real reason that I'm actually speaking out now. And anything, if it can help anybody, you know, I'm all for that. So anyway, but I'm gonna let everybody check in for a minute, since I'm slow and moving slow. But then after that, we'll knock out the information and then do a little bit of discussion and everything, and try to keep it a cool time frame this time. So I appreciate everybody that's coming. Interesting subject, ND in itself, and I guess NDs are getting more popular too. So going through, Candace Skinner, thank you for being here. Amy, thank you for being here. Angelique, thank you for being here. Brooks Michelle, thank you for being here. Oh, cool. People coming in. Got the chat going. I was like, man. Again, honestly, Jessica saved me because I could not get that chat running. I was like, man, if I didn't have, I was going through some sort of PTSD, because if I couldn't see the chat, it's like probably nobody might not be able to hear me, and I'll just be talking to myself again like I did for 2 hours. My brother may never get over that. Anyway, thanks everybody for being here. So we'll just go ahead and get started and talk about this a little bit and just kind of dive in, all right? Excuse me, I've got some pictures as usual to show. Not as many, but there are some, and I'll try to manipulate my way through those, and just to give you a kind of a thought. Okay, so going into this, all right, and appreciate everybody being here again. Seems like this is a situation or a subject, like I said, that is garnering more attention these days, because people are concerned about what's going on in the world and what our true nature is. So on September 28th, 2010, I had put a picture up that kind of accompanied this this whole live, and a lot of people seem to think that it was like something currently that just happened. That's not something that just happened to me. That was in 2010, September 28th, 2010. I had another near-death experience in Australia, but I'm not going to talk about that now. Still got a little trapped emotion on that, but this is just the first one that actually had it to where I came forward. All right. I was on my way to work actually, and it just wasn't far from where I lived, and I wasn't wearing my seatbelt, and I got hit. And during this, I had this little had a 2002 Trans Am Firebird thing, and I went through, when I got hit, it spun me, and I went through like my window, okay, went forward part of that window, but then when I went back and I flew up and I went through my T-tops. All right. Then I flew to the other side and went through the window and part of the door. But my foot got trapped under the brake pedal, so it stopped me from being ejected on the other side. But I was contorted, and when the paramedics got there and the firefighters, I was hanging on the other side of the car. All right. So with the impact of that, I sustained 4 catastrophic traumatic brain injuries. And what they were was a hematoma to the frontal lobe, a hematoma to the brain stem, medulla oblongata, hematoma to the quarter lobe, and then I have what's called DFA, diffusion axonal, which is like a shaken baby syndrome. In fact, I'll show you, that's one of the pictures I'll show to start off with here. I think it's a good one to actually show. Let's see, here we go. Uh-oh. Barry trying to manipulate the pictures. I think I'll get it here, though. Yeah, here we go. Here we go. Sorry, it took me a second here. A little disoriented from that barely getting on. Okay, anyway, this was one of the things that I had, okay? And what happened with me is when I took all these impacts, my brain shifted in the case, okay? So it was the brain swelling that was killing me, especially. That was making it hard for my respiratory system, my cardiovascular system to support and breathe, to regulate all that. Okay, so that's one of the things that happened to me was diffuse axonal injury. If you look that up, you'll find that a very, very high amount, everybody that gets this injury goes into a coma, whether it's induced or whether it's natural. But either way, comas with these, and the survival rate is like less than, it's 90%, is much less than 90% survival rate. So, when I actually found that out, it tripped me out. So this is, anyway, so that's just something I wanted people to be aware of. And this, it is a lot similar to shaken baby syndrome. But for what it's worth saying is that it's actually this injury that stopped them from doing any type of open brain injury or operation on me. And I think that's still probably part of the reason why I'm still who I am. So anyway, that's one of the ones. I think it's worth saying. So that's one of the ones there. I met somebody else that has had DFA, and he had it. We're very low population of people with that type of injury, and I mean each one to me they were saying were death blows. But I remember interacting with him, and he kept saying to me, "I'm not doing as good as you." I said, "What do you mean?" It makes me feel bad when other survivors, TBI survivors, will say that to me. Now, what do you mean? He says, "Well." He goes, "Man, can you still read?" I was like, "Yeah." He said, "Well, but you still remember the information?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Man, I can't anymore." I remember the way he's looking at me. He said, "Everybody covers for me and all this other stuff." And it was kind of shocking because you wouldn't have picked it up immediately when interacting with him. So anyway, that's just the injuries themselves. And I think it's worthy going over that because it was definitely a brother that had better days. All right. Anyway, so on the way to the hospital, I had to be incubated, and they said I had kind of died. I was I had to be incubated and resuscitated like twice, and they got me there. But during that time, then after that, I was in a coma for right about 2 weeks. Okay, and then it took about almost a month for me to remember who I was. And when I say that, for my pattern of decision making to really return. And during this time, even upon waking up from the coma, before I remembered who I was, excuse me, I could still see these beings in my mind's eye. Okay, I could still feel them. And I had seen them when I went through whatever I went through during this coma thing. All right. And I'll tell you how that kind of, I guess it's worthy. Hold on, I got my outline. That way I'll get through this quick. Okay. Okay, that's what I got next is the NDE part. Okay, so I'd seen these beings. Okay, and during the time, like I know that my life, like what they call a panoramic life review, flashed kind of right before my eyes. Okay, during that time, and I remember being at it's like being at different places. All right, we talk a little bit more about the NDE and some of the things that neuroscience tries to use to explain the NDE, such as oxygen deprivation, REM intrusion, and intensified brain connection, doing these brain surges and things like that, that they try to use to explain by what people see light and see all these other things. And being somebody that survived, I didn't take brain damage, but technically brain injury. So I wanted to evaluate all those things when I was normal and could think again, since I have a psychology background. Anyway, during this process, okay, two things that happened that are most significant that I'm going to talk about when I went through this process, this death, this coma. Okay, one thing is that I saw these beings that I prefer to call what this book calls them, which is super nanofem. All right, and I'm going to show you some more pictures here, and that's the Uranta book. And that's one thing that I do like about that book is the way it defines the angelics and the cosmic intelligences and the different levels. Okay, and it in that way, because I think the term angelic doesn't even fully describe what these beings were. Okay, let's take one. Okay, I'll show you this. This is actually from the Uranta book, and it's just a area where you can start looking to actually, if you want to check into the supernatofem within that book. All right, here we go. And what this section does is it goes through the different type of the supernatofem. Okay, and that it's parts like this of this book that are quite interesting. All right, so it goes from supernatofem to secondofem and terafem, and they go through that these different levels and of what would be these angelics. Okay, but I'll tell you, I believe that what I encountered was the supernatofem of some type. And these beings, the only thing I can tell you is they were regal. All right, in terms of the amount of light that they had coming off of them, the amount of pure love coming off of them, and they weren't like human forms. They were like strings of light, like filaments of light, like hundreds of them. And then outside of that was like these shields. Okay. Anyway, so I'm just showing this to you so you can that's just a part of the book. You can know it's paper 28, and that's where they start talking about the supernatofem, as you can see up there. And throughout that section, the one thing that is good about that book, everybody knows I got some issues with it, but one thing that I enjoy is the way they talk about the universes, the super universes, the grand universe, and also the different personalities and creator that prime creator and things that are involved in it. It's that part of it is interesting, I think. So I don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. It's some things in there that are put in there, especially in the racial section of this book, to discourage that's bullshit. That's to discourage people from me reading it and deciphering it, and taking the real information out of it. So anyway, point being on that. All right. So going to the next. Now, what I'm just going to throw another one at you, and this one is an illustration, okay, that was made for me by Kasara, Christine Dennett. And I think it's good just to show these so it gets everybody on the same page here. And this is one of the later sketches she did for me. In fact, it's the very last one she had did for me back in I think they did about 2013, 14. Anyway, point being, it's good, okay. And I was so critical of things of some things. Just I want things to be exact. What she's trying to illustrate there was these corpuscles of light that they were, okay, but they did not have human faces, okay, but they were just these strings of light. And what I saw were these different ones. I had seen four: a golden one, a purple one, uh, green one, and a blue one, a silver one actually. And the golden one was by far the brightest one. I had seen actually the purple was something that my mother had said when they said that I was conscious. That I started saying purple angel, and I started talking about my uncle too, who had just passed. But when I woke up, in fact, here, let's go a little bit further with that. So we're talking about the supernanofim. I'm going to show you one other. And this is an illustration, I think, and this is a little more adapt to what I had actually seen. It's taking me a minute, but I'm getting better with this, I swear to you. Excuse me. Here we go. There. The corpuscles of light thing. And although they didn't have a fully humanoid form, it was somewhat similar to this. And I'm sorry that I was so late getting on here, couldn't get the chat going and everything, because what I was going to do was link everybody to a video that's on my channel here, and it's called Angels in the Hospital. Okay, when I had regained consciousness, I was somewhat obsessed with these beings. I could still see them. They weren't present anymore, but I could still feel their love. I could still feel their presence. I could still feel them see them in my mind's eye and feel them in my heart and stuff. And these beings, the only word I can use to everybody, these supernanofim were regal. Okay, and outside of this light you're seeing, outside of that, it looked like they had these things like these shields on them around them, like these shields. And to me, I'm a Star Trek guy. I like some Star Trek. So to me, they look like defense shields. And outside of the defense shields was like, if you all that have seen, when you see a mirage, like on the highway, when you see the water, the steam coming up first, it's the effect of the heat. You see those steams, the little wavy steam. That's what it looked like outside of those shields. Okay. And I'm telling you, I'm sure that they were toning it down. When I say they were regal, I've never felt love that intense, not like that. It's some sort of direct God consciousness love that they channeled with the people that, over 100 some people came by and looked at me. And I think several did pray for me. And they channeled that with that love to see the healing that the person that exists there now. I have no doubt of that. Anyway, so that's these supernanofim. And something very interesting is that there's somebody I'll bring up, this lady that I had interactions with since I was much younger, since a teenager. Her name is White Dove. And, I went and talked to her after I had recovered and got out of the hospital and stuff. And she had said that she came to the hospital. And I contacted her because she's one of the people who should sign that book once my mother finally let me see it. And so I told her it's near-death experience, and I went over to see her. And she had said that there were these angels. They let her back in my room to pray for me. And when she tried to walk in, there were these angels. The golden one, she said, was standing in front of the door and telling her I was going to make a full recovery. And she said she didn't want to doubt that, but I was in really bad shape. And that there was, when she in the room, there was one angel that was massaging the base of my skull. Okay, and she said there's one that's massaging your brain. She said I don't know what he was doing, but he was massaging your brain. The other one was massaging the base of your neck. The other one was working on the base of your tailbone. And then there were like two watching them. So she described like six, which was more than what I actually remembered seeing in the room, okay, or just with me anyway. So that's, something very interesting. And when she said one was massaging my brain, one of the things that happened was they said it was the diffusal axonal that would probably kill me. Most likely is what they told my family, and the brain swelling that came with it. And it would take a miracle for my brain to shift back into its normal position in the case. And that's what happened. One day they're calling my family and saying that my brain shifted overnight in the case. And I had somebody else that came up to see me, a lady that she actually worked for me for a while. She's a case manager, but now she's she's a licensed marriage and family therapist now. And she's also very religious. She's a preacher too. Her name is Chi Chi. And she came up to see me with her, I guess her priest or minister, reverend, whatever. And she always said, his wife said that they were seers. Those two were. And that they were praying around my bed, and I sat up, and the equipment started going off, and they were wishing me healing and stuff. And then she said she ran out of the room because when I was looking around, I had a tear come out of my eye. And the people ran in and said, "What happened? What happened?" He said, "We were just praying," and he sat up. And so it's real good. It's real good. That's probably after my brain actually shifted. Now, what's interesting is when they're driving home, Chi-Chi says, my minister said he asked about you. He asked if you were kind of like a leader or something, and if you were somebody that people listen to a lot. And I told him, yeah, he kind of was like that. He said, I don't think I saw what you saw. When he set up, he was talking to groups of people about his injuries and about other things of this nature. And he's going to make a full recovery. And she was upset because she said I was in such bad shape, even after waking up. Okay. So that's another one of those things. Then she said his wife said the same thing. That's what I saw too. He was talking to groups of people. He's talking about about injuries like he's going through. So there you go. Anyway, that's something I think is worthy of sharing about that entire experience. All right. That's a big part of that for me. So when I awoke, even before I remembered who I was, I could still see these beings in my mind's eye. I could still feel that love and all that. Okay. And other things were me wondering how much was me responding to external stimuli neurologically, and how much was actually perceiving in there, because I was, experiencing different things there. But those beings were consistent, and I could still see them in my mind's eye before I remembered who they are. Okay. Or before I remembered who I was. And so people told me later on, they said, but Barry, after you woke up and stuff, I came to see you, and you were talking to me, and you seemed like, they seemed like you're kind of punch drunk or something, but it was you. Don't you remember? We were talking about this and that. I said, no, I don't remember. That's what that was, the gifted performance by a good actor, because I was scrambled eggs, before I remembered who I was. But that'll take us to the second part of my near-death experience, all right, which is when I experienced something that brain traumatic injury survivors call clearing out, which is when I remembered who I was, my pattern of decision making, and everything came back like pow. For me, that was almost the instant thing that happened. Okay, but the real interesting thing, when I tell you the story how it happened, I can tell you chronologically it's not fully correct. For me, it happened just before I remembered who I was. I was like asleep, not pow. But my mother had told me before she had passed, whatever happened to you happened right after while you were in that coma, before that even. Because they said that you were conscious. At a certain point, they called and said that you had that shift and you were conscious. We come up there and sit with you all day, and you were still sitting there like you're laying there like you're in the coma still. And she said, I kept asking him, it's like he's still in the coma. And they said, no, you weren't. But every now and again, your eyes would open and just roll to the back of your head for like a few seconds, and they close. She said that happened. That went on for a couple of days. And then you started speaking. You started mumbling, saying, "Purple angel, Reggie." Now, Reggie is his name was Reggie, but my brother's name is Reggie too. So we had to distinguish in there. But Reggie was my mother's second to youngest brother, and he was real cool. All right, we were tight. He was a sci-fi cat. He was he was in Vietnam. He's in the war and stuff. So he's a very interesting brother. All right. He had died, and we buried him a few days before I had this accident. Okay. Now, at some point, I am standing with my uncle. Okay. And my grandmother is standing behind us, and her good friend, Miss Viola. Miss Viola was my grandmother's good friend that always would open up that door when I was walking by and have me come in there and talk. She was nice, but Miss Viola, it's interesting. You get older, you always pay attention to the people that took the time to talk to you as a young person and be influential in that way. So Miss Viola was standing back there. Now my Uncle Reggie was kind of a muscular cat, all right? And he because I think he worked the railroad at one point too, but he he had on this this outfit, man. It was this bib, like these overalls with these like really corny Birkenstock looking things, and he had on this hat that was like a hat, like gosh, like a hat over here, like one of those a hat like this, like one of those plant baskets that's turned upside down to wear like a hat. It was like that, like to make it look like a sombrero when it's not. He was wearing one of those, all right, and he looked just corny. But we're standing in front of this tree that's in my grandmother's old apartment complex, and he lived in that complex too, and so did my other uncle for a little bit of time when I was a kid. And the only thing different about this is that this huge tree, is in the wrong part of this apartment complex. Okay, when I'm telling you all this, it's not like some vision I'm having, all right? I was there talking to him like I'm talking to y'all, but it was bizarre. And he starts talking about, he was saying some things, and finally I said, hey, Reggie, what's up with the outfit, man? That outfit sucks, man. And he turns around, he looks at the tree, and he turns and looks at me. He says, B said, the problem is that I crossed over, but right now you just can't remember it. He said, but if you get hurt again like you just did, you'll be here with us. And he points back there to my grandmother. And she never said anything. She's just kind of looking around like an owl. Boom, boom. You know what I mean? She never really said anything. And I look back, I said, there's nothing wrong with me. I said, I'm fine. And, it says something about the illusion that I wasn't fully transitioned over there because I thought I had a body. I slapped my chest and my thighs and stuff and jumped back. There's nothing wrong with me. I said, I'm fine. There's something wrong with you with that outfit. And he looks at the tree, he looks back at me, he said, B, you're not all right. You're not even close to all right, but you just can't remember it right now. And he turned back and looked at the tree and turned back and said something else to me. And look, I can't really tell you what that was, but it kind of shocked me a little bit. Because it kind of made me go, huh, kind of like that. And all of a sudden, boom, I come up and I'm in this, what they call a fall risk bed at the rehab place. I'd already been moving around apparently for a week and something, but I remembered who I was then. So chronologically, that was a part of my near-death experience that happened before my brain actually caught up and registered it, or however that works, okay? But it's definitely worthy of mentioning. And I bring this up also because, I hear a lot of things about how, your loved ones come for you as the part of the trick, and the false light and all these things people are spreading without any evidence of anything. Okay. And I've spoken against that, so I won't go too deep into that. But I will say this, we have a great discernment too. There's a shock, and this is something I will throw in there that comes with the earthbound spirit work I've done as well. Okay. We have a great shock that can come with death, to where your last thoughts and your final thoughts and your mindset means a lot, how you interpreted things when you go through the shock of that separation of the physical body. Okay, and that's how earthbounds happen and stuff like that. It's a very delicate area in there. All right, but I will say this, they felt like my loved ones. Do you remember? And that's the discernment we have. Do you remember who the people felt like? And from a mediumship standpoint, that's how oftentimes you can summon a spirit, or especially ones that have transitioned and aren't trapped. okay, is by remembering the feeling empathically of them. What did they feel like? Did these beings feel like them? They feel like somebody faking it, faking the funk. Use that discernment. Okay, that felt like my loved ones. That felt like Reggie. You know, he was one of those cool uncles who was like, man, yeah, come up here to Oklahoma because I got something to show you. Where we all went up there, and in this new city he lived in, and he had a copy of Predator on VHS. Somehow that thing had just been released in the theater. Still don't know how he got it. He kept saying, I got my ways, nephew. He was an uncle like that. He was really cool. He was into sci-fi, so we were tight like that. And that was part of that whole deal there. Now, something I'll add too is that my mother or my grandmother at that point had been transitioned for over 30 years, you know, and Reggie was just recent. So is that mean that he was able to talk to me and communicate with me more because I wasn't fully over there and he was only so far there? Where is that, like that interlocking place between the universes, between the realities where we can meet and talk? That place, that middle ground. There is such a place. I think that's where it was. Anyway, so I just want to add that that's a part of the second part of it that I think is really important to mention, right? The two parts that are very, very spiritual for me, as in going through, like people say, what else? Going through all that too, especially the first part when my life flashed in front of my eyes. I think the panoramic life review. Okay, I can tell you honestly, I thought I was kind of hip because I'm hip to some of these things. Already read the Bardo Thodol. I'd studied the death process and stuff. I didn't think I was going to have NDE, okay? But I can tell you this, even with all that, and when I come home from school, that ABC after school special, what was it, G.I. Joe and them or Braveheart, whoever, they talk about the golden rule, do unto others that you want to be done by and as you want to be done. I always kind of try to live by that, all right? And even with that, I can tell you something. I underestimated, this is what I learned from my NDE, I greatly underestimated the impact that our relationships have on each other. And like in a movie like Ghost, when Patrick Swayze turns back and looks at Demi and says, "Oh, I love you. I've always loved you." He kind of said that kind of goes with us or something like that. He said, very, very true. That is a big deal. And when I've done the work of past life regressions, okay, people go through what I tell you, that place of translation and reconfiguration. And a lot of that is simply their choices and the intent behind their choices and how it impacted others. That's what it's all about. It really is, to that degree. So anyway, all right, I take a drink here. Go to the second part of it. The third part, I'm almost done, folks. We'll do a little chat. I'm making good time. I think I'm going to make this deadline I have here. Okay, so going to the second part. Oh, something. Okay, a couple things I missed here. Okay, Mary Rodwell, and this is something that attracted me to her work when I first got out of the hospital. All right, she was talking about the type of people that are lifetime contactees, have a lifetime of contact, that have these horrible accidents that are like death accidents, and they're pulled out like the beings, somebody stops the space-time continuum and pulls the people out and then places them back just a second or two afterwards to where their injuries are not what they should be and their healing is somewhat rapid. She did a whole thing about that, and it was right after she'd done that video that was my mom, however they say it, my mom, MUMM, talks to aliens. I think that's probably still on YouTube. And when I met her at the Conscious Life Expo, she showed up early like I did for that panel. I was a bit nervous, so I just showed up early. And she was there, and we sat there and talked. And I'd just come from Australia and another near-death experience that I won't go into. But we sat there and talked, and I said, It's when she talked about that initially, these people that get removed from an accident like that, that really caught my attention, because that very way described me. They had a certain name that they were calling me, like the rehab before I left. Like, what was it, like type of miracle patient or something, because the way I had rehab so quick. And I went through all, like they were saying things like, you went through several windows and you didn't lose your teeth and stuff like that. Okay. Or I'm walking when my mother was almost terminal. She's in the ICU. And I'm walking with my other brother and one of my brothers, and the nurses stop us. I said, one of y'all were a patient here for a long time. We work in trauma, and you were head trauma. Okay, I said, it's me. And they kept looking at me when I'm talking, looking me up and down. I was like, is something wrong? They're like, no, it's just we worked on you, and you had critical head injuries. And the one nurse looks at me, you're still cognizant, aren't you? I was like, well, I got a lot of stress, emotional, but it's still me. But yeah, and things like that. And they were saying, like, you came in and what was it? Almost code black. I didn't know what that meant. I figured it was pretty bad. Probably when I go up there, they say that's what I would think code blue is and things like that. But it was almost dead. It's as close as about as bad as it can be. So it's little things like that that kept popping up that really tripped me out. So anyway, but Mary Rodwell, anyway, so point being, that was something she had brought up about these lifetime contactees. And I definitely fit that. And I fit a lot of the descriptions of the people she talks about. I don't act like that. And I don't think it's an ego thing or something, but it's just, I just fit those things have happened to me my whole life and all that stuff. So it just is what it is. And I'm not the only one. There's a whole bunch of us now. And that's something that's coming to the light much more than ever. And I think that's the shift in consciousness that might save this planet. Anyway, I don't want to go too far on that. I got to finish this stuff here. Okay. The TBI healing and the understanding of the near-death experience. I want to go just quickly into the TBI. And Jessica, if you happen to still be in the chat, could you do me one big favor and go to the playlist and type in on my channel here and type, there's a TBI, like a TBI playlist. Could you just maybe put that in the chat? And that's another reason I'm doing this. I've had some people, actually somebody I know had a TBI too, and used to work with, and they've been asking, like, how did you get through some of this and some things about it. So concerning the near-death experience and what happened to me and what I saw and what I was trying to relegate to how much was what I experienced, because let me tell you, reality is real to the perceiver. And had I not come back here, I would have still been over there dealing with that part of existence. No doubt about that. All right. So, and in that way, listen to me, folks, the reality is real to the perceiver. And we're beings of perception. I don't care what nobody says. We're beings of consciousness and perception who respond to universal stimuli. Ooh, it's the way it is. Anyway, okay. The oxygen, the one thing that as having a psychology background, which I did study in college, so I got one of my degrees in. So I try to put this in a way I could understand and compare it to neuroscience. And some of the things they're saying about in neuroscience, I think is incorrect. And some things focus around kind of the dying brain theory type of thing. And that includes oxygen deprivation, that you have like hypoxia, which is, that's when, so what and so I thought about that, was the last oxygen starting to process through before they saved me, and I couldn't breathe enough, and I was starting to see stuff like that. Is that what happened? Well, I tell you, I sure did feel a lot when that happened. But so that's one thing. Okay, I don't think that's what it was, but I looked at that. Another thing would be what's called REM intrusion. All right, which is rapid eye movement intrusion. That's when you between the waking and the sleeping cycles gets disrupted, and it creates like a hybrid state of consciousness. You're kind of in and out both. And I think maybe as a hypnotist, I would say more of like being in some type of a deep delta, mixed delta, mixed alpha delta type of thing, which is two sides of the spectrum there. But I think that's more what they're suggesting here with this REM intrusion. Did I go through that? Did I go through what they call also the altered perception of self, which comes from these when you start getting certain junctions start getting rattled. Okay, they say that you get these brain surges that are like hormonal in a way and give you these visions and things. And another explanation they have for it is just hallucinogenics. Did you already have hallucinogenics in your body, or did these hormones kind of caught that and put it in you like a DMT type of perception? And another one is, is it just the need for salvation, people wanting that to happen and believing it makes it happen too? All of these things that try to scientifically explain and take away from what people are experiencing. And I discredit most of that. I think none of that of me, but I had to evaluate that as someone who appreciates science and that baseline science can give. I wanted to, kind of see and test some of those things. Don't think that's what happened to me exactly. I think for me, it's more reality is real to the perceiver, and also being aware of some of these different states and trying to do something with those. I think it means something, So anyway, oh, sorry. Another thing that they've come up with is, I was glad I wrote that down. Part of, those of you that are familiar with like the electrical universe and electrical phenomenon, they also say it's a part of like the electron impulse of the brains going off and things. And that's why people are seeing that, so it couldn't possibly be real, that's it. That's what I want to go over mostly about that. And a near-death experience. That's what I have charted in the outline. All right. Gosh, I did it. Okay, I'm gonna go through the chat a little bit to see how everybody's doing. Hopefully, mine didn't move. It's still way up at what? 240. What's up, Ernest? How you doing? Nicole Johnson, how you doing? Matthew, greetings. Oh, Ada, what's happening? Spring Clear, Arkansas. Arkansas is an interesting place. I especially like the area of Rogers. Rogers is interesting, that whole Beaver Lake area there. And also, Eureka Springs was cool. But, oddly, there are parts of that area of Beaver Lake where I was that it is Sasquatch feeling to me. To say, I don't, I looked and I didn't see a whole lot of hits around there. But just interesting place. Arkansas all the way around. And there's that wonderful mine there too, the crystal mine. Greetings. Oh wow, I was way behind on chat. I'm sorry. Okay, there it goes. TBI and CTE are effed up. Poncho, yeah, agreed. They pretty much suck big time, man. All of them. Oh, make sure there's anything else I wanted to show everybody too, picture wise. Oh yeah, I will show you this. This is going to, sorry, I should have done this earlier, everybody, but I think this is important because we're going to have some survivors that are watching this, okay? And that's what I want to make sure. Oh, all right. One day I'll get even better with this. Okay, emotional stages of TBI, stages of grief for patients and families. I think this is relevant because, I went through this. Shock and disbelief. I couldn't believe that something happened to me that I actually got hurt. You know what I mean? In a life-threatening way. And it's always my worst fear. And the fact that my independence was taken during that time. Okay, so I went through the shock. I went through the disbelief. Mad at the MF for a while, that it happened. Mad about I lost everything. Mad about all the stuff it brought in my all this other stuff it brought into my life. You know what I mean? And a loss of my routine, a loss of my independence. And the fact that first I couldn't seem to think clear until I had that full clear out. But even after that, it took time to recover. And when they say that they think that in the first, 6 months, the person makes the biggest recovery during TBI, I disagree with that. I think it goes years into it. But the first 6 months for me were pretty intense. I was just tripped out. I went through a part where I thought, well, I got in that accident and I got knocked out, and then they drugged me, and that they were making money off me. That's the insurance. But it was until I had saw my report that was so thick that it was unbelievable. You know what I mean? I could no longer use that anymore. So anger went with that too. Then there was the sorrow and the grieving. loss of normal things I was doing, loss of independence, law, and not, knowing that you're not like, you've been like wounded. That whole thing that goes on hard. Guilt. I felt guilt because I felt like I was a stress on the people that knew me, my family in particular, that helped me and were saving me and were having to be a support system. Okay. And this one was big. I still deal with that to this day. Depression. It's no joke. It comes with that, definitely. All right. And it's just part of it. It was so weird because I used to work with people with depression. I didn't think I would get it, but it's something that is a real problem or a real issue with, I think, the one thing, folks, about COVID that was positive, I think, is that it brought depression and mental health up on front. It put it on Front Street, and people are talking about it. I kind of mentioned disbelief, and denial kind of goes with that. I was in denial that, one, that I needed, like, until I could identify the triggers, like, since I took a frontal lobe shot, okay, if you research that, frontal lobe people often sometimes have anger and things that come, so that the anger part that comes like verbal a lot before they're aware of it. And that happened to me a few times. And, I was be like, shit, I wasn't like that before. Somebody hit a trigger and I let you have it. And like, it's like my brother Mitch would say, man, you always had a short fuse anyway. He said, you start spitting that acid, man. He said, but now it's even worse. So I had to, I had to go to therapy. I had to get that under control, and sometimes it's all right to understand you might need somebody else to help you with something. You know what I mean? So that comes with that depression and things. Also, so denial, we talked about that. And then the acceptance. That's kind of the final stage. Well, not the final stage, but the stage where, okay, this happened. Now I got to go forward. You know what I mean? So these are just stages. Now, everybody, there's a lot more than this, but I think it's cool just to put this into a way, because the other thing about this is it's the people that are support system that didn't have the injury go through this too. The same thing. Okay. So, I mean, so it's like, so it's just something to be aware of on that. And I want to give a shout out to all survivors, because there are different levels of TBI, different types of disability. Some things like I was spared, although I had some emotional problems and things, depression and things like that. I was spared. Like, my motor sensory skills are still good, my memory's good. At first it wasn't. At first I wasn't good with it until I had that clearing out. And I couldn't remember what that felt like, and that was when a lot of shock and disbelief came, because I was like, wait a minute. I was not like this before. You know what I mean? But then that led to a sense of guilt. I'm impressing that, like, when I was around other survivors and they start telling me, some of them would just had one catastrophic traumatic TBI, and you could see manual dexterity problems or whatever it might be, and they look at me, I'm not doing as good as you. And it made me feel like crap. You know what I mean? And I felt like crap because I was a burden on my family, I felt like, and something else I'm going to bring up with that, all right, is that I'm going to do one more picture because I want to give them some more world definite credit. Here we go. So I talked about support systems, everybody, all right? So, we'll try not to get emotional with y'all. We talk about support system. This is my mother. She passed 10 days after my 40th birthday, actually. She was my greatest supporter. All right, whether it be youth and after the accident, especially, because they said I would be a lifetime when I didn't stay dead, pretty much. They said I was going to be a lifetime vegetable, especially devoid of long-term life memories, and to kind of remember the way I used to be, and not push that on me and stuff like that. When they said that, my my sister tells me, she said, they said that you're going to be a vegetable and everything. So Mama jumped up and that chair flew down and she said, that's some bullshit. No, he is not. And then she skipped trying to aftercare things they're trying to put me in. She made sure I didn't go there. I wouldn't have done well, and helped me through my recovery. And I went when I was going through the depression. Um, she was at one point dying. I was checking on her, and she's telling me I walk in, she's kind of laying her head down on the chair, and she's like, you know, those doctors and everybody was sure wrong about you. And I was like, what do you mean? Because I was really not doing good that day. I was really feeling sorry for myself that day. And she said, well, they just said that you would be not the same anymore. You'd be devoid of long-term memories. And she said, you're anything but. It's you and that, she would say, you and that creepy Star Trek memory of yours. And she laid her head back down. She looks back up at me. She said, you're still the reason that you're still the same way that you are is because you're supposed to do something. And at that point, I was like, well, what? I've lost everything, my independence. They say I'm like jacked up. I can't process information, all these other things. And she laid her head back down. She said, I don't know. She said, but son, it's important. Whatever it is, it's very important. And she's real serious. And, that is one of the things in 2014, 2 months after she died, that got me to come forward was that. I had people asking me to come forward and start speaking, and I wouldn't do it. Then my brothers and thinking about what she said there made me do that first interview with Bill Spicer and that punk ass cat Bogan. Anyway, just wanted to share that. That's my mother and give her much respect. She still helps me now. When I had another near-death experience in Australia, I'm sure that she helped me to help someone else to save my life. Two very important people in my life. So anyway, just wanted to throw that in there. I think that's important. Give due where it's due. Yeah, and so the point being, I think it's easy to the holidays like this. You don't have somebody like my mother there. She was born on New Year's Day, and my dad's born on New Year's Eve. So my mother was all into the holidays. She would really do them up. So stuff like that is very enjoyable. So once some presences aren't there anymore, they're missed. But why people are still in your life, still there, bring them flowers when they're alive. Show appreciation when they're alive, not when they're laying in the ground or on the mantle. You know what I mean? Anyway, so that's most of it for that. Sorry, I forgot to bring that up during my initial big speech. Tennessee, what's happening? Oh wow, you guys are. There's a few people in here. That's really cool. Thank you all for coming. Punch. After TBI, I knew who I was, but remembering anything is tougher. Yeah. That's something I was blessed to not have much. But at first, it wasn't like that. To have that clearing out, and then it took probably another month or so for things to get a lot clearer. Like for example, I had some speech problems, and my dad would say, well, when you get excited, you start talking like William Shatner. And William Shatner, he kind of, how he talks like that. And I was like, I didn't do that before. And it would happen when I got like tired most of the time, either really excited or tired. And I went to speech therapy for a while, and I got discharged really quick. They're saying, hey, there's nothing really wrong with you. I said, no, I mumble or something sometimes. And they're like, we've tested you in a bunch of different things. They kept me for an extra few weeks in there because I just demanded it. But they kept saying there's really not much wrong with your speech. But it was little things like that I could detect, or even more to the point, and this will be anybody that especially had a frontal lobe accident, okay? The first time I got to speak, it's the Traumatic Brain Injury Association of my state got me to actually speak in front of these doctors and stuff. And the nurses and them it's interesting just how it happened, but I did it. And the lady after me was the head of KU Med, and she was doing one on frontal lobe, or one of the heads of them. She's doing it on frontal lobe. And the way she was describing the people who have frontal lobe injuries, the type of effects, it brought tears to my eyes because it was describing me a lot and a lot of the things I had to work on a lot. You know what I mean? So anyway, memory wise, it was all right, but that type of emotional deal. So what I had to do to really make sure, because once I would fly off, I mean, I like would go off in a way that was worse than I even would have ever before. So that I had to figure out, start identifying what were my triggers. And I taught anger management for a long time. But the triggers, the situation like that, I had to anticipate triggers before a situation. That was not like that before. And so that's something that may help other survivors of frontal lobe shots. Just be aware before you go into a situation, there's some fool there that might piss you off, or something that's going to stress you out and trip you out. Or you just might have a bad day. That depression comes out of nowhere and just ruins days, just for no reason at all. It's a trip. So it's little things like that, just being prepared in advance. What Be aware, okay, be aware of the pre-triggers of the triggers. That's all I could say. All right, that helped me a lot to where things start getting normal again, where I'm not okay, so volatile and stuff like that. So it's I think those are just important things. I offer this information because I know there's a lot of people that are going through it. I'm not the only one. We all have different ways. It's not about right or wrong. It's about, I can only offer you the things that help me. I'm not trying to give anybody any medical advice. It's not like that. I can just say the things that worked for me that I had to do. Cognitive behavioral helped me a lot. Identifying triggers, dealing with my emotions, okay? Seeing where was I having deficits and maybe working at that, or was I? And because they weren't like manual dexterity or immediate thoughts or anything like that, doesn't mean that emotionally that you're responding to everything correctly. So stuff like that, and we are beings of emotion, no matter how we look at it. Okay, anyway, sorry, back to this. Sorry, I got me to thinking and talking too much. At what point does TBI come CTE? CTE, something else I want to say too, when it comes to depression, something that helped me, just me, is a product that you can get on the Walmart shelf. It's called SAMe, SAME. It's herbal. I meant to bring the box up here or to show y'all a picture of it. Anyway, it's SAME. And I know a natural doctor that had put me on a protocol with that and some GABA, some other stuff. And it was based on the CTE doctor that Will Smith played in Concussion. Okay. So to my knowledge, my limited knowledge, CTE is almost like more operable in terms of it happens quick impacts, as TBI is more of a devastating impact injury wise. Like, for example, I took traumatic brain injury, but I didn't have brain damage. If I'd had brain damage, I would not have recovered the way that you see now. It'd be different things, problems and things I would have went through. That's what they told me anyway. So that's the big difference there. But I think, in my opinion, when you're dealing with head concussion, I think it all sucks. I don't care if it's CTI, TBI, BBD. I don't care, man. It all pretty much gets official thumbs down. And for that reason, I'm not a huge fan of football, all right? Just not. Sorry. I never have been. Somebody told me recently, man, you sound un-American. No, I'm not un-American, man. I just don't really get off on football, But I can normally predict the Super Bowl, the two people that are playing. I can normally see that, but that's got nothing to do with liking the game. Anyway, no respect to those that do. It's cool. It's all good. The Uranta book. Lakeside Laura, what's happening? Thanks for coming. Turquoise headphones. Hey, Tennessee, Kentucky Bigfoot. Thank you very much for being here. I appreciate you, man. Thank you. Oh, cool. Oh, cool. I love people talking. It's cool getting. Oh, thanks, Lakeside. Super Universe. Yeah, sorry, I get to hopefully that wasn't too boring for anybody. Hey Amy, thank you. Oh, Candace. Which image, Candace? That's cool. Thank you. I try to choose just a few because I manipulate I'm still fairly slow with them, but enough to where everybody can see it at least. So yeah, that's the video. That's the video. It's Tennessee Bigfoot 304. The video's Angel caught on camera in hospital, North Carolina, kind of like video. Yeah, that it's on my channel. It's under it might be under various deals and maybe under my deal. The reason why I had put that up, sorry, gosh, I don't even know if I said. Did I skip through that? I mean, I feel like I didn't talk about it. Sorry, I meant to put that up in the chat, but I was too late, even just getting the chat going. But that's on my channel, and the reason why I put that in, I was just tripped out. When I was still in the rehab, but for this room I was in, this wing, I could get my laptop to work, and my dad had got my laptop out of my car. I remember him saying, because I remember when I woke up, I couldn't remember who I was yet, but I was told, I was like, well, are they fixing my ride? It was like almost collectors, and he said, son, it's already been compacted. And he's like, man, look at my hands. His hands were all cut up. He said, I didn't have gloves, and I got in the back seat and got your laptop. He said, but it cut my hands up, all that glass. He said, it's a miracle you survived. That's one thing I can remember at one point is waking up and seeing my dad at the end of my bed and asking him looking at me saying, you can make it, you can make it. You know what I mean? That must have been very early on. So anyway, that's that. Sorry, back to Tennessee Bigfoot. Sorry. See how quick a brother gets off deal or emotional or whatever. Anyway, that video, the lady, her daughter was critical or whatever, but they've got a light configuration, and she's saying, oh, it's an angel. And look at that light configuration. It's somewhat similar to these beings that I saw that weren't corporeal. It's not exact, but it's somewhat similar to that. Put it to you like this, same ballpark, all right? And I was obsessing because when I woke up, I was like, man, okay. And once I remembered who I was and cleared out, I was like, there's no way this just happened to me. So I started typing. That's how I found that video. I typed in angels in the hospital because I'm laying up there in the hospital so I could see. That video came up, and a video came up with Kelly Coffey. And I watched several of her videos talking about her near-death experience and seeing something similar, okay? To a point of where, oddly enough, in years to come, she would wind up contacting me, and I did a bunch of her shows. And, of course, she's one of those people that hates me now for whatever reason. But long story. But anyway, that's just kind of how that worked out. So anyway. Yeah, but I advise. I'm sorry I didn't get that up there, but I advise everybody try to check that video out. It's definitely on my channel, and it should be under various paranormal aspects, maybe under interdimensional and beings. Anyway, sorry. Amy, I have a friend named Sundeer, Barry. She is an angel, but an earth angel. Cool, Amy. Amy, in this book, that's one thing I like about this book. They have this section that's called Uranta Angels, Uranta Seraphim, maybe. But, Uranta is supposed to mean earth. So it's the earth book. But they talk about these different angelics that are here on this planet that are resident here. Like, for example, the voice of I've already resonated with this one, the voice of the garden. Supposed to be the ones that were in the actual garden itself, those voices, but also voices that come with vegetation and with spiritual jungles and things of that nature. Voices of the garden, kind of good part of that. But they're really good at talking about the different type of earth seraphim and I never produced cherubim, I think it is. And there's another classification they have in here called Sanobim, Sannobim. I think they involved with Earth, but not from here, maybe not stationed here or generally from here. But it talks about the beings that are here, that are generally here. And then it goes into those beings that came here that were those extraterrestrials that were non-corporeal. Okay, they were non-physicals, and how they're interacting and starting to have reproducing with the angelics of this, or with the angelics of this realm and the non-corporeals, and how they were making these other type of offspring that were called, this book calls them midwayers. And you've got primary midwayers and secondary midwayers. Primary midwayers are mostly non-physical, as to where secondary midwayers are described as being able to materialize, having certain abilities and some characteristics that to me always sounded a lot like jinn. That's just, and I've done a video on that too. That's in there. That one will be under book reviews. It's a book called, or it's a video called Gosh, you read the book and oh boy, sorry, I lost that real quick, man. Oh, must be a guitar. Um, God, what was I saying? Ah, just it's the ransom book and something. I'm sorry, I lost it on that one, Amy. Sorry. Oh, the midway. Yeah, sorry. Under the book reviews, it'll be the Uranta book and the midwayers. That's the name of that video. I brought it back. Thank God. But that's very cool. You have an angel named that. Sounds of Native American descent. Also very cool. Hello, Aaron. Miracles. Yeah, I'd say yeah, I had a kind of a miracle. The movie Coco. Never seen that. Excuse me. Auntie Erin, what's happening? How you doing? Thank you for being here. I had an OBE at my uncle's death that was crazy. I'm still glad you're here too, Barry. Thank you. Oh, I guess you know something? I can do this, can I? Oh, I did it! Another step for mankind. Okay. Oh, that was a big. It only took me. Hey, y'all! It only took me 10 lives to figure out that right there. Tamara, thank you for being here. Welcome. I believe my mom used to leave coins either in my coin seat or at my doors. You know, very much, a lot of times the spirits will use what they call apporting, APPORTING, I believe. And a lot of times they'll use coins for that and, move them around or even keys. Some of the stronger will use keys. You know your keys were just right there on the counter. You look up there in the bathroom. You didn't leave them in there or they weren't on the counter, you go back and they're back there. What? Little stuff like that they aport just to get our attention sometimes. And I know that there's little tricksters will do that, but also some of the angelics and some of the higher beings will do that too, just to get our attention because of the vibrational frequency separation between us, you know? So thank you for coming. I appreciate you being here. Very cool. Everybody's chatting. Oh, thank you, Amy. Yeah, my mother was super cool. Super cool. I mean, to where there's 4 of us, and each one of us would tell you, oh, I was probably mama's favorite. You know what I mean? She treated all of us that equal. Really cool. Really cool. And she was also a big promoter of my science fiction love, a promoter of my spirituality too, in terms of like, you know, pushing me or always pushed me the right direction in that way. And interestingly enough, I had 2 experiences. 2 of my earliest experiences are with my mom, watching that time ship, and also the individual that gave me that rock, Alex. We've talked about in the video that the live that was the charters. Interesting thing is though, I'm like a foot shorter than everybody but my sister in my family. Went through all those emotions. I guess my kids were told I'd be a veggie. Greetings, Chris. Thank you for being here. Says Survivor. I went through all those emotions. Guess my kids were told that I'd be a veggie. When I'd be sorry, my daughter would say, "Mom, you're not a potato." Yeah, the emotions. They're. You must be a survivor. So I'm glad you're still here. Yeah, it's interesting because that's how it was for me. Like sometimes someone would be overwhelming. You know what I mean? There would be depressive ones and all that. I wasn't feeling nothing manic. It was always just the depressive type of things or that feeling of like just what has been lost and focusing on that, who I was, as opposed to the present. You know what I mean? And as beings, sometimes that is one thing that humanity, us humans, I think are here to work on, which is not living in the future and worried about the future and being too prepared for that. Not, not living in the past, definitely. Okay. And letting it not, and being trapped in the past and not being afraid of the future. It's sometimes living in the moment and experiencing the moment and preparing for the storm that's to come. But it's real interesting, we start really centering ourselves like that. But I understand. I went through similar, and the first year it was like a little more intense. then I start seeing somebody for it and trying to just work on it and do some cognitive behavioral. But I understand completely. Thank you for sharing that, Chris. Survivor's guilt. Oh, wow. Wow, this is really cool. Everybody's talking about themselves and some things they've had. That's really, 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 really interesting. A savant. Wow. Well, I appreciate everybody sharing that. See, that's cool, man. That's cool if that can be this can be a forum for people to express some mental health problems they might have had. Because no matter what, TBI is definitely a mental health problem, man. You know what I mean? So yeah, I appreciate everybody kind of just talking. Jojo, welcome. Bigfoot Dwarf, what's up, man? Welcome. Aussie Ainge, what's up? Welcome. Cool people showing up here. I'm almost caught up, so we're doing good. We still have so much to learn. Wow, I'm sorry you went through that. Sorry you went through that. Yeah, there's still a lot to learn, definitely, because they don't understand that much about how the brain actually functions. You know, there's that device, and if you're familiar with somebody I'm not a huge fan of, but Montel Williams, you know, Montel Williams has that what is this? Not MS, is it? What has he got? It's anyway, he's got this device that he uses, and it was supposed to be it's like a pool type of device, and they actually said that that's actually really effective for traumatic brain injury people as well, traumatic brain injury patients and survivors as well. So it's little things like that that we're coming technologically coming forward, and I think the understanding of telomeres also is real important in keeping ourselves wrapped and trying to understand actually the synaptic gap and things of that nature. That we're getting further with that science, but it's not enough yet. You know, and I think maybe the more focus on the protection of the head would be even more gratifying. You know what I mean? Especially in football. So I was like, man, my brother always says, man, they got better helmets now. I said, well, they can't be that great. There should be no CTE. They got the technology now. There should be so many shock absorbers in those helmets that there should be no head trauma. We're at that point in technology. I honestly believe that, you know. Greetings. Thank you for coming, even if just for a second. I see angels. Yes, they're very real. You know, and sometimes I won't always use that word angel because I think it just kind of cuts them short. You know what I mean? These beings were very, very regal. And I only say that because I think maybe that term has been bastardized by humanity a little bit, but they were much more than that. These beings were pure love. Okay. And I know they had been toning it down because I'm convinced otherwise that they would have been so much they would have burned out the chakras in my back. That type of love. You know, you don't think of love hurting only like the way we hurt each other in relationships here, but we don't think about pure God consciousness being painful like that, being something that could actually burn us up or maybe even cause what do you call it? Spontaneous combustion. I don't know, but it felt like that. I know they were toning it down enough to help me heal, but also that it didn't burn me out. If that makes sense to everybody. Amy, what's up? Buy that book now. You read the book? Yeah. Check it. It's worth an investment. Like I said, I got some issues with it, but it's a good one. You know, the Keys of Enoch book talks about when they talk about quote unquote the brotherhood of light and all that. That's quite interesting too. It's worth a look too. Very cool. What's up, Jessica? I'm so glad you're still here. I'm about to make my deadline. I'm right there, Jessica. I'm close. Oh, thank you, Susan. Thank you for being here. Right on. Oh, thanks for posting the reviews, Jessica. Thank you. In fact, let me put that up right there. Yeah, thanks for that. Thank you. Yeah, she was great. Definitely the result of me being here now. Oh, what a great question. Tamara, what's up? Should we ask our angels their names? You can. I gotta be honest. They don't give me names. The purple one, I had written a name not long after I had woke up or something, or after I remembered who I was. I can't. I've lost that in previous tablets, but I did get a name with that one, some type of a sound. But most of them that I've dealt with, they don't give me names. Just like most of the extraterrestrials don't. I think that's more of almost a human classification. But hey, if you don't ask, if you don't play, you can't win. So there's no harm in asking. They may give you something or give you a color or give you some type of a communication that will give you the ability to identify them along with the presence that you feel coming from them. So that's a really great question. For example, I didn't get any names, but when White Dove says when I came in, that gold angel, the golden one with the AG, she's a well of AGLE, angelic golden liquid energy that I've described being on those craft, being generated by things like this and other things. Okay, she's aware of that, and she's a contactee. So we've discussed that several times. But she said that being the golden one said she was in charge, and that's what I felt always too. And I said, what was the name of that angel? I never got a name. You know what she said? She said the name of that being was Enoch. That's what she said. And she's somebody, she can be she's a little new agey in some ways, which is all right. I actually bought my first Keys of Enoch book from her in 1991. So make of it what you will. I found that interesting though. You know what I mean? I can't say neither here nor no, but something else she said. I was unaware that she spoke other languages. Okay, how many other languages she spoke? And she said each one of those angels, when they addressed her, each one of them was speaking a different language, or also had a different musical tone, like they were playing these almost celestial instruments in that room. That's what she had said, and I thought that was really fascinating, just fascinating. So she was quite gifted, and sometimes points in my youth, sometimes a few things I was able to bounce off her that were informational, in that way. Hopefully that helps a little bit. Thanks, Amy. I made it through. Thanks, Jessica. Celebrate triumphs. Oh, thank you all. Nice comments. Thank you. It does. It does. And again, I could say Javelin ate up. One thing that helped me was the Sammy. Like I said, not medical advice. I'm just saying what helped me. What helped me. SAME. You can get it on the wall of Walmart in the herbal section there for like $25 for 30 pills or something, and it really helped a lot, more than any of the stuff that those doctors are trying to give for depression, make you feel like you're zombified. So that's just a little again, entertainment purposes only, and what helped me. Oh, very cool. Third Eye Tribe, welcome. Thank you for being here. Parkinson's. It was who are we talking about? It's Parkinson's. Yeah, Montel Williams. Something else about him. Not just was he a soldier. He claims to be like a ninja samurai dude. Said he spent a bunch of time on the Fuji Mountain. And I saw him doing an interview one day. He's telling this guy, "I could just kill you right now with a single move." Oh, that's kind of big. You never know though. He might be bad. But he was so arrogant on his show. People ask me, Montel, how can you? I was like, oh my gosh, man. Anyway. Oh no, he does have MS. Okay, MS. Yeah, near-death experience is so extraordinary and mind-blowing. And everybody has a different one. You know what I mean? And I think that, like, for example, a bus accident, I dealt with a near-death experience, or a kid is in a bus accident, and a couple others died in an accident. But after the accident is done, each one of them was like in a different place. Some of them had already crossed, and this guy's still trapped with a couple others. You know what I mean? And so it's a situation to that degree that it gets really, really, really interesting how near-death experiences can go down, how each one of us will experience something else based on not just our vibration, our frequency, but also, I think, our mindset and the fact to remember that the brain communicates to the spirits in pictures. So those last pictures and things that our brain is taking before it disconnects, that goes to the spirit, that's important. And the way that we deal with the shock of death, we all go through, there's a great shock that comes with it. And our mindset and intent that goes with that mindset, the intent that goes with the imagery has a lot to do with it, a lot more than what we would think. And I think that's not emphasized enough at all, you know? And I say that due to the fact of infants that I've crossed now, children and infants that don't cross over after something happens, because sometimes they either might not know how, they were caught in the middle and they get confused. You know what I mean? As opposed to even just saying, no, I'm not. It's a confusion that goes on when, especially, you're dying upon coming in, and then, or, it's an interesting deal. And we know that's real because how much of our emotion goes with it. So anyway, sorry. Cool. Well, that's everybody there. I got to the end of the chat. I made it. I want to thank everybody for being here. Anything before I leave that I didn't tap on to get to that anybody wanted to touch on by making my timeline here? I appreciate all of you coming. I think I got to most of the interesting stuff. Okay. And it's just worth throwing in because we've all had different experiences. Like for me, when I went through this, I don't remember seeing a tunnel of light, but I remember seeing these super nanofilm. But for me, how much of it was me processing, like I said, external stimuli compared to the different environments I was consciously experiencing within my mind, within my spirit, and perceptually. We talked in the last video about the assemblage point and about the universal filaments that go through the assemblage point, that is that black spot on the luminous cocoon on our soul. And something like that happens to somebody, like what happened to me, that assemblage point will move even more than it did around the band of man during dreaming. So, there are other filaments coming in. I remember other places and other things I saw, but none of it, I can't, not real concisively. And the people say, man, is that, you ever thought about getting hypnosis for that? No, because I've been told that the pain I was in was enough to kill me. So I don't think I'm supposed to remember all that. All right. But however that did, when I woke up, I'm like, damn, man, I've lost like a month and a half of my life. And the only other time I've lost time in my life was during those extraterrestrial encounters. So why not just give it up and go get a real regression? So that's when I got a real one done. About a year after that accident, 2 years, about 2011 by then. But yeah, so anyway, it's just, so one of those things. And it's not for that accident, I never would have come forward and been talking to you all now, period. So that's why I brought it up, and I want to help any survivors and things like that. Thank you all for being here. I think we're done, right? Yeah. Thanks everybody for being here. Peace out and have a good Sunday. And I hope you all had good Thanksgiving, good holiday and everything. And much love. Peace.